Today I'm reviewing and testing the Edelkrone SliderONE Pro motorized compact slider. The SliderONE Pro is an evolution of Edelkrone's extremely popular SliderONE, which I also own. The original SliderONE was sold with an optional motion module, which turned it into a motorized slider. The SliderONE Pro combines the slider and motion unit into one single device. A little later in the video, I'll compare the SliderONE Pro to my original SliderONE, and I'll tell you about some of the clear differences between the two. I also should mention that this review unit was sent to me by Edelkrone for the review, but as with all the other products I usually review, I definitely won't be cutting them any slack. The SliderONE Pro is machined out of aluminum with a black anodized finish and seems pretty robustly built. It definitely looks and feels like a piece of professional camera gear. The unit measures in at about 10.5 inches in length by about 3.5 inches deep by about 2 inches tall and weighs in at just over 2 pounds. This makes it an extremely compact slider that's very easy to travel with. Being compact, however, also limits the slider's travel range. The SliderONE Pro has a maximum travel of just 7.9 inches. Now this may help or hurt depending on what you use it for, and I'll show you specific examples when I test it in a minute. The SliderONE Pro is a motorized belt-driven slider that can either be mounted to a tripod or mounting device with a 3/8 inch male thread. It also has a very useful fluid level, so you can level it out once it's mounted to a tripod. You can also use the slider on a table or flat surface thanks to its rubber feet. Cameras and fluid heads mount to the 3/8 inch male thread on the carriage. I recommend using a fluid head or two-way pan tilt head on top of it so you can get really creative with your camera angles. During my tests I used Edelkrone's Flex Tilt Head 2, which I actually recommend. This head allowed me to position my camera in several really creative positions, and I have a separate review of the Flex Tilt Head 2, so feel free to check that out. Now one thing to remember though is that the SliderONE Pro is rated to handle camera and head combinations as heavy as 20 pounds or 9 kilograms, which by the way is really good for a slider this size. The unit is powered by a Canon LPE6 battery, and Edelkrone advertises a 12-hour battery life if you use 2600 mAh LPE6 batteries, and I have to say my tests seem to confirm this amazing battery life. I tested my unit for over 2 weeks. I started off with a fully charged battery, probably did about 2 to 3 hours of slides in total, and yet had an almost full pack when I was done. The battery also acts as the device's power button. When the battery clicks into the slot on the bottom, the slider makes a few chirping sounds and comes to life. However, I do wish there was a physical power button on the unit so I could turn it off when I'm done. Not a huge issue, but just something that would have been nice to have. And if you're looking to buy the right batteries for your SliderONE Pro, I'll leave links right below the video. Once the unit is powered on, all the controls are through the SliderONE Pro app, which is available for both iOS and Android. Once you open up the app, it automatically searches for the device and connects to it via Bluetooth. The controls on the app are surprisingly intuitive and work without any major glitches. There's an area with grid lines on top. Touching and dragging from left to right or right to left makes the slider move in the direction of your choice. The vertical position of the circle determines the acceleration at which the slider moves. The green bar beneath that with the letters A on the left and B on the right shows the current position of the slider and the permitted travel range in green. The points A and B correspond to the A and B markings on the slider itself. You can always reduce or increase the slider's travel range by moving it to a specific position and hitting set as A or set as B or both. You can also set the slider speed and acceleration or deceleration at both points A and B. I won't go into these settings in depth as Edelkrone already has a detailed video on how these work. Let me just say that the app worked almost flawlessly, never lost connection, hung or crashed. It was a very smooth and trouble-free experience. The app also has detailed controls if you plan to shoot time lapses and stop motion videos, and the slider has a camera shutter control port that allows the slider to control your camera's shutter. Edelkrone sells the shutter cable for all major camera brands, and I definitely feel it's worth the investment if you plan on shooting time lapses or stop motion shots. The big question though is, how does it perform? and I mounted my Panasonic G7 and tested it out both indoors and outdoors, and as you can see, the slides were very smooth even in its slow mode. It produced some really nice smooth slides with perfectly timed starts and stops, and as you can probably tell, it seems to work really well on subjects that are close up. This works great for product shots and food shots and smooth cinematic B-roll. However, the only downside to having a very small slide range is that it isn't well suited to doing slides of landscapes or wide shots in general. As you can see in the shot, the camera barely appears to move despite the fact that the slider has gone through its entire travel range. And you're also probably wondering how it performs against a manual slider like the original SliderONE. I can tell you that with my SliderONE, with quite a bit of effort, experience, and patience, I was able to get pretty decent slides. However, the SliderONE Pro allows almost anyone to get perfect slides each time. It really takes the guesswork and stress out of slides and allows you to focus on producing your creative work. Now, in case your battery does run out in the middle of a shoot and you want to perform some manual slides, you can loosen this hex head screw on top and actually complete your shots. Just remember to tighten the screw again before you use it with a battery the next time. Another thing I observed was that it wasn't all that quiet. As you can tell from this clip in which the camera was about 2 feet from the slider, it definitely isn't awfully noisy either, but I wouldn't recommend using it when you're recording audio and video at the same time. It'll work for B-roll, but I wouldn't recommend it for something like a live interview. Another minor gripe was that when using it on a table and when the slider was moved around, its feet seemed to leave black smudge marks on my table. I contacted Edelkrone about it, and they did send me a set of replacement feet. However, I noticed the same exact issue with the replacement feet. It's not horrible and the stains aren't permanent, but just something to consider if you plan to use it on a table. So should you buy the SliderONE Pro? I would say that if you plan to use it for up-close slides for things like product shots, food videos, or even cinematic B-roll footage, the SliderONE Pro works brilliantly. It's very robustly built, the app works smoothly and intuitively, and very importantly, it produces beautiful footage that really adds to your production value. It's definitely worth the money, in my opinion. If you're looking to buy one of these, I'll leave a link right below this video, and if you've bought one of these and are looking to set it up, I have a separate video on unboxing and setting it up, so feel free to check that out. And if you already own one of these, I'd like to hear about your experience in the comments below. Hope this review was useful. If it was, please hit that like button and subscribe for more reviews, unboxings, and how-to videos. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.